Good morning, all of you. A warm welcome. Happy to see you all again. Another request, please move forward. You saw how the hall gets crowded yesterday, you saw it. Please keep your mobile phones on silent, make space for others to join. There's going to be a little delay because the technical setup is still on. So please bear with us. And until then, you can definitely chat, but keep moving forward and make space. Check, check, check. ठीक है? Check करते हैं. Check, check, check. Hello. Hello, welcome all of you. Yeah. Let's all pay attention. Abhijata is lighting the lamp. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Let us light the lamp before Lord Patanjali. On this very memorable day, the 50th year annual day function, let's begin our invocation to Lord Patanjali. योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचा अलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोतं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम् हरिः ओम् गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम् A very warm welcome. So, most of us were present last evening. When I went home, it felt like we are in an intermission of a long movie, which is taking us back and forth. You know, those flashbacks coming, you revisit certain days, and we are all indeed blessed to see this day today. You all agree? So, today's program, I'm going to bring you back to the day because we've been traveling. We saw the stages, we saw the story. Sir has been explaining to us what was happening from 1975 and also a little before that. I'm going to take you to 2024-25. I remember I was here last year, bringing in the 50th year. It feels like that was just yesterday or day before. And it also, at the same time, feels like it's been a journey of years, just this 1 year. So I'm in that mixed feeling of both the things. Should I start the annual report? 50 golden years of RIMYI. The buzz around RIMYI's 50th anniversary began soon after the institute reopened following the COVID pandemic. It was decided to commemorate the Golden Jubilee year with a series of intensives, or rather extensives as they were conceptualized, workshops on workshops, workshops for online students from India and outreach activities. As an important milestone year in its journey, RIMY's events of these 12 months have been a constant reminder to reflect on what we call Iyengar Yoga. Before we look at the year, let's take a moment to remember old students and friends of the Institute who passed away this year. Koli Dastur, who passed away in May, was one of Guruji's earliest students when he used to take general classes at Gujarati High School. Suresh Dandekar was a student of the very first batch at the Institute who organized the fabrication of our yoga chairs back then. Chotu Sharma, a cricketer who was a student from the 80s, helped organize yoga classes for sports people at the Institute. Dhan Palkhiwala, one of the RIMI committee members and Guruji's student from the early 60s. G.C. Oswal, another one of the founding members of the Institute, who also looked after the trust accounts. I think we all have been kind of introduced to them by Sir yesterday. Now let's have a look at the activities of the Institute for this year. About classes, the Institute conducts 46 offline classes and 32 online classes. The Institute currently caters to 1,500 plus offline students and 1,300 and more online students. RIMI has 30 teachers and 20 assistants and apprentices. Currently, there are 38 associations and 7,459 certified yoga teachers in 109 countries. RIMYI Online, the Iyengar Yoga official YouTube channel, which had its early beginnings around the pandemic, has now grown to be a vast repository of yoga talks and lectures in English and Marathi. The Institute events are also broadcast live, making it possible for students from all over the world to be a part of the various functions that happen here. Additionally, a series of interactive sessions with Prashant Iyengar on the philosophy of teaching yoga was organized by IYNAUS. It has been a way for the global Iyengar community to be connected to the Institute. RIMI now also has an Instagram presence at RIMI Pune, where updates and announcements are put up. About the store, the RIMI store has a catalog of 105 books in 4 languages: English, Hindi, Marathi, and Gujarati. These include works by Guruji, Gitaji, Prashantji, and others. The store also has 34 types of props available for purchase off the shelf. About the library, stock taking was successfully completed this year, and the library has 8,500 titles in 40 languages. The library is open every day between 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and is managed by a group of volunteers. A quick run through of the entire year, 2024-25. Each month was buzzing with activity as various programs were planned, organized, executed, alongside the regular classes conducted at the Institute. Nearly 800 participants from India and around the world participated in these various events throughout the year. So to begin with January 2025, there was a remedial intensive annual day and a beginners workshop. In the month of February, there was an intensive for advanced practitioners. March saw an intensive for Polish contingent. April, we celebrated the Hanuman Jayanti. In the month of May, the Indian Army Southern Command set up a garden called Yoga Vatika, dedicated to our beloved Guruji, which was inaugurated by Prashantji on the 31st of May, 2024. June was the new academic year, as you know. There were college students' field visits and an Indian Army 10-day program. In July, there was an intensive for advanced practitioners. We celebrated Prashantji's 75th birthday, and this was marked by the release of Prashantji's book, My Life, My Words. There was a Malaysian yoga school field trip and a school children visit at RIMI the same month. In August, there was an outreach in Pune Empress Garden. We celebrated Guruji's Punyatithi, and there was a workshop for teachers from India. September, there was an intensive for advanced practitioners and a pilot project which became regular. October was the celebration for Patanjali Jayanti. November, there was a workshop for online intermediate students from India. And December, we had Yoganushasanam. 2 books by Gitaji, Yoga and Ayurveda, and Gitanjali were released on this occasion. Guruji's 106th birth anniversary also was celebrated in December. Jan 2025, it's all fresh in our minds, an intensive for advanced practitioners. And there was a tree plantation activity to commemorate Guruji's birth anniversary and the Institute's 50th anniversary. That's all. Take some time to sink in all of this. So far, I think we've missed something audio visual. Am I right? We've been at the stage now. Our eyes turn to the screen. We have a small clip coming up, after which there will be again back in time and we have an interactive session. Get ready. Hilata video.
And when I came back to South Africa, my friend Jenny put 10 pounds on and I collapsed. So the power of Pune and the Institute and Guruji, you did your very best work there. And you brought that feeling back into your normal life. And that's what's still sustaining me, I'm telling you.
You know, you could be doing Uttanasana and I needed the bricks for my alignment on my shoulders, and I could feel the bricks sliding on the floor, Guruji walking around, and you're thinking, I've got to stay, I've got to stay. And then a moment later, his wonderful big toe, second toe, just rests on the bricks. He doesn't say anything, he just holds the bricks for you, and up you go and you stay. Then he just walks away.
A serious back problem, which came in 2009, which was actually as a result of a car accident I had many years before. And I had a serious problem where I couldn't feel my lower body from my waist down for about 10 months. I was supposed to have an operation, but of course I didn't, because I came to Pune and I worked with Guruji, and it was amazing. And I had a program to work on. He worked with me in the medical classes, and I started to get the feeling back after about 10 months of doing the program. And as I say, the rest is history, because the medics here and the doctors were completely and utterly amazed. I was not supposed to be able to get the full feeling back, but I did.
So for those of us who've been practicing for many years, we remember on a regular basis how compassionate he was toward us. And it was a fierce compassion. And some people could take it and some people couldn't. I could take it because I felt the love behind it. And I felt like it was a way that he was actually showing caring, you know. It was a fierce compassion.
A publication came out, on the front was his face, and it said, "The Lion and the Lamb." And that is how he was. Inside the class, you didn't know your left from your right. You were so afraid. Outside the class, like he was a lamb. He was just your friend. You could talk to him about anything, anything.
I read he was an eagle, he was a tiger. Actually, for me, he was both of them, everything together. Always when he enters, we knew he was in the room because of a very strong presence.
The spirit of the place is, and you can't replicate it. Nowhere else, nowhere else. So it gave us life, it fulfilled our soul, and it maintained me until I could go again.
Well, it's sacred. There's no other space like it. There's no other feeling like it, whether or not Guruji was in the room, and in later years when you knew he was working by the Tresla, you walked into that room and that was it. You took your coat off, I'm saying taking your coat off, not literally, but you're taking any knowledge that you had, that you thought you had. You go in as a complete beginner, as a complete blank canvas to absorb the atmosphere, the information, and just the sacredness of being in the presence of the masters.
In that room, you do things as a practitioner that you could never do outside of that room. All those things that I could never do. You know, I could never do that pose. I could never get up in this pose or do that pose. It all seemed possible, really, kind of in that atmosphere, that beautiful atmosphere of the Institute.
And I like very much. In Pune, we say the asanas in Sanskrit. This is our link also. You know, sometimes in France we say, oh, why do you say in Sanskrit? And I say, yes, but when I go to Pune, if I say Adho Mukha Svanasana, the Russian understand, the Chinese understand, the Indian understands, everybody. do. And this is also this link.
You know, and it still happens when I walk into the Institute. This is his gift to humanity. You know, that we feel, especially those of us who started early, when we walk into the Institute, we feel his presence.
Look, I was never a top student, but there was always something very special about connecting with Guruji again. And most important thing of all, I think sometimes we all are self-critical, and yet he managed to make me feel comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah, so if you were here on 14th of December, any one of you, you remember we had made a collage and some creatives. This is almost like a collage of memories down the lane. Thanks to the organizers who did it for us. And thanks to technology that they could come online. And we still feel so many qualities, that texture of Guruji's warmth, love, strength, wisdom, everything. Now we have a live interactive session here. I welcome a few old students. Yes, I welcome Ramaswamy, the oldest student of Prashantji, Sean, Chris, Laurie, Gabriella, Bobby, Shobha, James, George, Sheila, and I request Rajvi to take over and coordinate this session.
Morning. So before we start the interaction, I'm going to read out a message from Father Anthony Lobo. Prashantji referred to him a couple of times yesterday. He is the founding member of the first committee that was formed for RIMYI. He is in Berlin and could not travel to India, and unfortunately could not use the technology of sending a video. So I'm reading his message to Prashantji. Congratulations on the 50th Jubilee of the RIMYI. I'm happy to have been associated with your family and the Yoga Institute a long time back. And I'm happy to have seen it grow and flourish over the years and help many people around the world. I met your father in the early 60s and trained with him for 16 years. He was a great inspiration to me in life. God bless the Institute and its students all around the world. Keep the good work going. Yours with affection, Anthony Lobo, whom we all know and have heard of as Father Lobo. So after this message, we go down memory lane. And yesterday, Prashantji was talking about his historical times and the prehistorical times of the Institute. And he mentioned the Institute, the institution behind the Institute is Guruji. So it is one and the same. Amruta just said 1 year passed by. It seems a long time ago, but it was very soon. Actually, when we think back, a lot of memories flood back over the decades. You know, walking into the Institute, we would have initially the classes by Prashantji in the morning, Geetaji in the evening. And each of us have our memories entwined, because for most of us, moment we have become part of the institute, our lives are entwined with the institute. So each of us has tons of memories, and I'm sure each of us would like to express our memories. But I think in this condition, this hall would be too short, leave alone the stage. So we just have a few expressing the memories, but it's an opportunity for all of us in the hall to please share your memories with us. I will share an email ID. We can put your anecdotes, because this is for all of us to know how our lives have been transformed by RIMYI. Now, if we think back, the institute, the hall was different. There were balconies, as Prashantji said. And in the very early days, I remember Geetaji getting very annoyed because people were unaware they would change outside. And then Geetaji said, you can't do that. You can't just get your t-shirt and change into your clothes. Simple things, because we were all different. Then, of course, the halls extended. Coming into the hall, we had all memories, especially the first memories of our classes. Then about the various functions. We would be in the corner, the Mumbai students, we always remember, move to the right. The hall would be packed, literally packed as it is today. And then you look back at pictures from Julia Peterson's photo album, and you say this hall had 8, 10, 20 students. And wow, those must be the days to get so much space. And then there was not even a mat available. We had to function with half a mat. So how much has the institute grown? And then we cannot forget the library. That's where all our learnings happen. Guruji, 2:15, he would be walking down, and suddenly there's a spark in all those who are sitting there. And I'm sure those memories come back to those who have been present at that time. So first, apologies to all who could not be here. Apologies to all who are not in this hall, because I'm sure all of us want to express. So you're just a representative. So we have, maybe I'll just give you a moment to just introduce yourselves a bit, because just from where you are and how long you have been associated. Sometimes you don't even know the years or dates. It's not like your schools when you got in. It's later you say, try to relate. So quick, starting with Shobha. Yeah. Mike.
Hello, I'm Shobha Shetty, and I joined the institute in 1979. I used to go to another institute, and then they advised me, you got the best of the institute in Pune, and why are you missing it? That's how I, my sisters, and my mom, we all joined this institute. And this is more a home than my own house. Thank you.
James. Yeah, please.
Well, my first introduction to BKS Iyengar was in an office in New York City, small office, in 1989, where Mary Dunn had brought back a group of students for the last intensive of the United States. And I was outside the office looking into the room, and they were showing the 1938 practice tape. And I was 27, a dancer, and I looked in the room, I thought, I don't know who these people are. These aren't my people. But then I saw the video. I thought, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. How do you do that? And I talked to Mary, and she said, oh, you have to go to India and you write a letter. It will take 3 years. So I thought, okay. So I wrote the letter. I got 3 years waiting. But in the meantime, in the dance company, they had a tour of India. So I came to India in 1990. And there was I had a day off. So I got on the Deccan Queen, took the train down, and Mary had given me a letter. So I presented the letter to Pandu. He took me down to the library, and Guruji was there, and I gave him the letter. I sat there, it was quiet for a long time. He read the letter. And I'd heard these stories in that room that day, that he's a lion, he's fierce, and he was just so nice. And it was so, I thought, what is it, what are they talking about? And said goodbye and got back on the train and went back to Mumbai. I found out later that he could be also fierce.
Hi, I'm Sheila Haswell, UK. I actually met Guruji first in the book, Light on Yoga, 1974. And I didn't meet him in person till the 90s. And I arrived here in 94, but my mum was coming from 76. and I heard all the stories and all the tales. She probably came 12 times before she brought me. And of course, yeah, I keep coming back now too.
Hi, my name is Joan White, and I'm from the USA. I met Guruji in 1973 and started studying with him then. And it's been a roller coaster ride, I would say, since then. He totally changed my life. He changed the direction of my life, and I will forever grateful. And Mary Palmer, who was my teacher and Mary Dunn's mother, I had a very severe accident in 1972, and she called me up and she said, honey, this is going to be the reason I'm going to make BKS Iyengar come to United States. And that's what happened. So I'm
Hello, I'm Bobby Clennell. We'd started, Lindsay, my husband, and I had been doing yoga in London from about 73. Guruji had come over and we watched him do a demonstration, and somehow we managed to get into a class of his. And we said, oh, okay, let's go to India. We've been doing yoga for like 2 years, once a week in an evening class, you know. But Lindsay said, I think I'd better go on my own first. We don't know what, it could be Mars. I mean, we had no idea what it could possibly be. So I was a little annoyed. I was at home with the kids, but he went. And I don't think, that was 75. I don't think it resonated with him what had happened that year, and that he'd met Krishnamacharya, and that this was the opening. You know, he came home and he said, yeah, it's okay, you come. So in 76, we both went, and it was like, okay, so we'll bring the children. So in 77, we brought the children, and we're still here. So that's it.
I'll start with a little story. Sometime in 1976, May, June time, a young lady in her late 20s is riding a scooter towards the engineering college, herself being a mechanical engineer. The front wheel goes flat and she falls down on the engineering college overbridge. The Pune's would know where it is. It happens to be right opposite to a famous orthopedic hospital run by a very famous orthopedic surgeon. She was shifted there. She was treated by him. After 3 months of treatment, she could not put her weight on her feet. Her ankle bone had a crack and she wouldn't be able to put her foot on the ground. That famous orthopedic doctor told him, there's only one person who can help you from now onwards. Go to Guruji Iyengar. And her husband brought her to the institute. They were staying close by. And Guruji used to work on her ankle himself on many occasions over half an hour. And gradually she became all right, and Guruji told her to start attending the classes. Her husband thought, I'm coming with her. Why don't I also join the class? That lady is my wife. And I have been coming to the class ever since. So when I attended initially, it used to be one class a week. I saw a young guy standing on the platform wearing shorts, very handsome, and sleeveless banyan, giving demos, whom I later realized was Prashant. And the class used to be about 20-25 students, and Guruji in his mid-50s, you can imagine what it would be for those 20-25 students. I still remember the gentle weight of Guruji on my back when he stood on my back, putting me on Virasana, bent forward. It was an intense experience. You can tell, I can talk for hours on that. Somewhere early 80s, Guruji handed over the mantle to Prashantji, and I have attended from his first class onwards. And those classes were not what his classes are today. They were equally intense, except that he was more gentle than Guruji. Somewhere in 89, as fate would have it, Prashantji met with an accident. I went to see him in the hospital. The nurse there told me, "You know him?" I said, "Yes, he is my teacher, my guru." Sir, I had never seen someone like this with such severe injury. He walked into the hospital holding his right hand with his left hand, no emotions on his face. He just gently walked into the hospital. When he was in the hospital, so we were wondering who will take our class. And in comes Geeta ji to take our class. And it was completely different. We were on an overdrive from the moment go. Few months later, Prashant ji came back to take the classes. And from then onwards, he systematically, continuously changed his way of teaching. Everything changed. And we started learning to look inwards towards ourselves instead of outside doing asanas. Now, I continue to be part of the Yoga Institute. I don't call it an institute any longer. The change that happened to me is from a Yoga Institute. It has become my temple. When I come here, all I can say is that I am blessed to have been associated with this temple and the entire Iyengar family. Thank you.
My name is Chris Sadek. I came to India for the first time in 1980. I was very happy to have some wonderful teachers back in the States. I had Bev Graves, probably very few people know her now, Bev Graves, and another woman named Helen Trojan, who had trained also with Mary Palmer. They had a, a retreat somewhere in, I think it was in Michigan, it was called St. Basil's, I think it was. And so when I went to Bev, well, first of all, I was taking yoga in another tradition, and I was in graduate school, and one of my friends gave me Light on Yoga. And I looked at Light on Yoga, I opened it up, and I thought, you'd have to be hit by a Mack truck to do those poses. And I put it on my shelf. And about 2 years later, I moved, and I took it with me. I packed it up. And it turned out that a teacher that was in the town where I moved was teaching from the book. She had never met an Iyengar teacher, but she was teaching from the book. So I got it back out. And anyway, then eventually I met Mary Dunn, Mary Palmer, and started yoga. Then in the fall of 1980, I decided I would come here. So in the spring of 1980, B.I. Tarporwala, Barjo Tarporwala, came to Wisconsin, where I was living. Mr. Tarporwala was one of the people who helped edit Light on Yoga. Mr. Tarporwala was a very, very brilliant man, very kind, beautiful person. And he said to me, well, when you come to India, I will come and meet you. And I have 2 daughters, and you will stay with us. So I went, and he met me, and he used to say, we used to sit at the table, and he'd say, this is where Light on Yoga was edited. This table was where it was edited. And I was fortunate then to have my teacher write and say, well, could I stay at the Institute? So I stayed at the Institute in 1980. Savita, who was the youngest daughter, taught me how to cook because there were very few restaurants, I think only one that they recommended. And so she taught me how to cook. It was a wonderful experience. I met the whole family. Kaushik, who
I can't believe he recognized me the other day, but he did. Kaushik was 7 years old and Srini was a few years younger than that. My first introduction to Guruji, however, was I came up from, well, first of all, there was nothing but the institute here. So when you reach the train station in Pune, you had to say Hanuman, because the Hanuman was way at the top and that you could see the Hanuman. So that's what the rickshaw drivers would know. So you'd say Hanuman, you know, so the first day I came up, and I remember it was that wall that I stood at in Uttanasana. I had a scoliosis and I didn't see Guruji enter, but I felt him. He went over to the storeroom. He took out a brick, and you know those heavy bricks. And he said, stand up. And he stuffed this brick in my side. And he said, now bend over. And if you drop the brick, you will break your foot. So that was my first introduction. I came back in 1982. I came back in 1983 with my husband, came back with my children. And I feel like he changed my life. And I just have to say one more thing about my experience with him was when I brought a couple of students and we were standing right in front of him. He was teaching and he was instructing. And then he looked at me and he said, you are teaching from your head and not your heart. And I felt so bad. I felt just terribly, bad because I had, I had my students there, and also I felt bad because I felt like I'd let him down. And I went to lunch with my students and I said, I'm really sorry, I feel really bad. And they said, why, what? They hadn't understood a word he said.
Sorry for the interruption. The parking is on the institute side of the road. There are a few of you who have parked on the other side of the road. And those who have done that, please go down and move your vehicles away from there. It's causing a disturbance.
My name is Gabriella, and I am from Italy, from Florence, that we call Firenze. And we were lucky that Guruji had a friend in Florence. Her name was Vanda Sclaravelli, and he was a very good friend of Guruji. And so Guruji used to come very often to Florence. And so the first time that he came was in the year 72, and is when I started to do Iyengar yoga. And so I saw him often, and it was always in a nice setting because it was in the house of Vanda. And the first time I came here was in the 82, and I came with my friend Bianca, with whom we started together, and we were staying at the CPS ashram that is close by here, where it was, at that time was a lot of flowers, a lot of plants, and also a lot of mice. And I remember being here in the class when it was the terrace, and we used to practice also in the terrace, and I used to hide on the back of that column. From that gate, you could see Guruji in his desk. So we were pretending to do asana there but watching Guruji. And at the evening class, when we were going away, often we could see Guruji on the room downstairs watching the cricket.
You people are so smiley. My name is Lori Blakeney. I'm also from this original Michigan group with Joan and Chris when Guruji would come to Michigan. So I met him 3 times before starting my annual visits here, which was in '83. So I was a very willing volunteer in my early 20s to try to make his visits work well for us. I wasn't at the St. Basil's retreat, but he then expanded how many people he was willing to teach here in Ann Arbor. One thing he said about Ann Arbor, he said, Ann Arbor, all brain, no brawn. So we were clumsy in trying to host him. We were doing our best, but we didn't really know what to do. So for one of the years he came 3 times before I came here. We decided that we would wear orange polka dots on the parts of our body that weren't working well, that would somehow make things easier for him. So there we all were with, lots of people had many dots on their bodies. And he just walked in and cracked up. He just was like, what are you people? What are these dots? We said, oh, Guruji, you must, we don't want you to have to hear from us. He says, I can see.
My name is George Dovis, and I came to Iyengar Yoga in the late 1990s in Sydney, Australia. So I met Guruji through the teachers that were teaching Iyengar Yoga. And in a very short amount of time, it changed me as a person. And I came to Pune in the early 2000s. And I walked into the institute, into the office area, and there was Guruji. He had just walked up from the library. And so my first meeting with him was with no words. It was an emotional experience. I hadn't planned what I would do. I hadn't planned what I would say, but I fell to my knees and bowed to him. And that was my first meeting with Guruji. Since then, I've been coming to the Institute. And coming to the Institute, I think the idea of coming to the Institute also had sprouted much earlier than when I actually came. I was very taken by teachers who would mention coming here for a month or 2 months of study. And that idea really appealed to me. And so that idea of taking time out of your life and coming to study was something that had really taken hold in me. And I knew that's what I wanted to do as well. And so since the early 2000s, I've been coming here, and it's something I have has become a very important part of my life and will remain to be.
So to add on to where George ended, the Institute has become a part of our lives. In fact, it has become our life. So for us, especially those of us who are very close, at some point, you just need to come back here. And fortunately for us, it's not as much as an effort as it is for the international students. Whilst people were talking about their first meeting with Guruji, and Sheila said the first meeting was with Light on Yoga, I have an interesting of how we got into it. My father in the early 1971 incidentally came upon a person who came to meet Guruji. And he was just fascinated about things. And we grew up, Guruji would come every Saturday, Sunday to Mumbai. And on Sundays, after my father attended the class, afternoon would be a story time. It appeared like a story time. Guruji touched this person and the arms went about 6 inches forward in Paschimottanasana. And it was stories after stories. And it appeared as if this person was like the mythological figure from the Amar Chitra Kathas we read in childhood. Somebody who is not human. So of course, the first time meeting him, there was something which just glued you. And I remember that first I just went to class and stood there watching a class and actually stood for 2 hours because you couldn't move in front of Guruji, even if you're not a part of the class. And a lot of memories come back about the power of Guruji, as we say. We know when he would practice, it would be so silent. But the moment he opened one word, especially in the later years, in the corner there, earlier the corner year, when Abhijata would teach, it would just transformed the whole class, whoever was there. And I'm sure those of you here remember. Now we'll go from the hall and our first interactions and meetings to the library and the picnics, the non-class time. And I think library was a place which was always packed and very often not with any books in front of us. So it was all looking at Guruji. Guruji would be working and suddenly he would stand, tell us, okay, do this asana. So it would be like you would have had a hearty lunch 2:30 in the library and you may have been asked to do a Shirshasana. So it was, that kind where a lot of learning happened from what he was never in isolation. So when he spoke to anybody, an interview, there were people around, and that's where we got so much to know about him. So I would like to talk, anybody here, talk about your time in the library, the time at the picnics, which were an annual feature of the Institute, where it was a totally different atmosphere with Geeta ji and, the food cooked and, yeah, please, anybody? Yeah, Joan.
Well, I didn't realize everybody was going to tell their life's history when we were introducing ourselves, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Anyway, I can tell you many stories from all of these events in the library. Just as Rajri said, you'd be in the library pretending to, study. You'd have this book in front of you, and of course you weren't. And suddenly he would say, do Parshvakonasana. What's your experience on the right side? Is it the same as now do it on the left? Is it the same experience? You were like, wait a minute, I'm here to study. I wasn't here to get up and do, I'm not dressed, I can't do it. Didn't make any difference. He'd say, do it. See what it feels like. Tell me, what are you feeling? Can you make the right side exactly the same as the left side? Of course you couldn't. Then you had to tell him why you couldn't make it the same. And then you were like, oh my God, what did I just say? Did I say it wrong? But, he was very tolerant. He was kind of, okay, now study this, now study that. So the library became a very interesting experience. Would I have to get up and do an asana? Would I watch somebody get up and do an asana? Would he tell some wonderful story that you never heard before, but you could only hear it if you were in the library at that very moment, right? Never came up again. So the library became a kind of magical place with Guruji. And much as the classes could have an unknown fear to them, the library became this really strange place where you never knew. Were you going to be good? Were you going to have an experience? Were you going to flub some posture and not be able to say a word? Were you closer to the object or were you closer to the subject? Did you know what the object and the subject were? No. That was the problem.
Yesterday, Prashant was talking about Guruji's practice in the afternoon, half an hour headstand, half an hour Sarvangasana every afternoon. And I arrived for the first time here in Pune in '76, and we were invited to attend. He wasn't teaching, he was there with Prashant and Geeta ji and Father Lobo, doing their half an hour each of the inversions. And we kept a respectful distance. We didn't get too close, and he wasn't going to, we understood he wasn't going to teach us. But if Guruji was in the room, he somehow, it was a teaching experience. And I thought, oh, you have to stay on your head for half an hour. Oh, all right, that's what you do. So I would come in, stand on my head for half an hour, do Sarvangasana for half an hour. And that was, I hadn't been doing yoga for very long, but it sort of set the tone anyway for my inversions practice. Even though I think I was just too terrified to get down. Actually, you just had to stay up. Okay, so who's next?
I remember the first year when I was here, the women were dressing the long sari, the 9-yard sari, and they were And I remember one day there was all women here doing trikonasana with the ropes, with the sari. And then the first person fell down, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. And at the end, all the women with this beautiful, colorful sari, they're all on the floor. And Guruji, you're not on your feet, you're not grounded. That was really a very funny scene.
Well, as far as the library goes, I spent many, many hours looking at the same page in a book, just thinking that maybe I could get some words of wisdom from Guruji. He often would just be studying and then all of a sudden he would start talking. And it was always extremely interesting. So I loved the library. It's much different today. It was really musty and the books were kind of mildewy, but it was a place where we just loved being because Guruji was there. I had a lot of experience with Guruji in the medical classes, which I really, really enjoyed. And I was really impressed with the way he would ask me to look at the skin. He would ask me to look at the color of things. He would ask me to, adjust something that was very minor, but it would make a huge difference. He was brilliant in the medical classes, just brilliant. And I felt something from him that was amazingly powerful. It wasn't just like what he was doing. It was completely, his hands were just something special, and if he touched you, you felt not just his touch, but some power came through him. It was pretty amazing. So after I worked in the medical class with him, I decided that I should understand what he was doing, I thought I could. So I went to physical therapy school. It didn't tell me anything much about yoga. It told me a little bit about anatomy, but it didn't tell me much about yoga. So I really felt like I just had to keep coming to Pune and being with Guruji and understanding it better that way. His power was just something that I think is indescribable.
Many experiences with Guruji. I'll just share two of them. I was in the Shirshasana post in the class. I used to do Shirshasana those days. I came down after about 3 minutes. Guruji came and asked me, what happened? I said, I couldn't stand. He said, next class, tell me before you go on Shirshasana. So I went and told Guruji, you told me to tell you. So he said, yes, go against the wall. So I went on my head against the wall. And Guruji came and he went, took to Shirshasana position in front of me, facing me, 1 foot away from me. So you can see the distance. And he was talking to me, corrected me, post, etc., etc. It continued for some time. Then finally, he came down and he told me, now you can come down. So he asked me, do you know how many minutes you stood today? I said, I don't know. Either I have my stopwatch with me. It's exactly 13.5 minutes. He just said, that's what it is. It is not your strength or something like that. It is your inner strength and mind that takes you there. Second instance was my son. He used to attend Guruji's children's class from the age, I think, 7 or 8. Later, he was studying for engineering in IIT Madras. At that time, it was called Madras, IIT Madras. He asked me, will Guruji come to Madras IIT and talk to the students? I said, go and ask him. I took my son to Guruji. He asked him, he readily agreed. He said, yes, I'll come, tell me the time. And they decide date. And He went to Chennai and talked to the students there. So it was as simple as that. Just one statement. She said, I'll go.
Hi, it's not a library story. I hope that's okay. But the Shirshasana there has just triggered me. So a couple of things. As I said, that my mum came in the early days. She said when they came here, the building was here, but it wasn't complete. And I think we got from Prachanchi yesterday that it took a long time to get everything cleared. So she said they'd come to a class and it would be 7 a.m. start, but no finish time. No finish time, just when Guruji decided it was time to finish. So she said sometimes it would be 1 o'clock and they were hungry. So they would leave the hall and they would go up the drive and Guruji would come over the balcony and say, hey, come back. The place needs sweeping. So they had to come back and sweep the dust before the next class. Now, my first visit was 94 and it was an intensive. And there were 36 or 40 of us in the intensive. And I'd already met Guruji in the UK, but this was my first visit here. And we put our mats out for Shirshasana. Geetaji was teaching that morning because the intensive was with both Guruji and Geetaji. And she brought us all, set your mats out, come to the stage and get ready for Shirshasana. She was demonstrating. And when I went back to my space on the second line in this row, exactly behind me on the third line, we worked on the lines. But we had a mat on the line, but we were all on the lines for alignment, etc. And exactly behind me was Guruji already in Shirshasana. And I had a second take, and I knew from all the stories of my mum, if I had taken my mat and moved it, I would be in big trouble. So I had to go up in Shirshasana. I'm here, Guruji will be where the front of this stage is. And I was terrified. And right throughout that Shirshasana, I heard him shouting out instructions. It was all about the legs, they're still in there, all about the backs of the knees. And I'd already been told of these 30-minute Shirshasanas. And then he said, and when you work this intensely, you don't stay so long. Phew, I was saved. Thank you.
I'll open up another aspect of Guruji in the library. Once I was there, I had become involved in the assessments in China, which was a new region, an upcoming region. And Guruji received a letter from an anonymous student in China saying that the assessment application fee was too expensive for them. And Guruji called me over to his table and sat down with me and proceeded to go through how we should run the assessments financially so they weren't too onerous on the candidates who are applying. So for me, it really spoke to Guruji and his concern for all students, no matter who they were, and his very practical and caring nature for everyone.
I would also like to share one experience triggered after listening to them. Being very young and very supple, I never came under Guruji's attention. But during my first pregnancy, Guruji took a lot of interest and he made me do quite a few asanas. And then he told me, why don't you write a book? I said, Guruji, this is my first pregnancy and I've got no experience. I don't think I'm capable of writing a book. But we did do a photo shoot in my 5th month, continuously for 2.5 hours. And in my 9th month also for 2.5 hours. And then while doing the photo shoot, Guruji said, one day you might very proudly say, I have done all this. So he stood in some of the photographs. And while taking the asanas, what joy I have experienced, what feeling I have experienced, I think it's a blessing for me because I don't know, there are no words. I think I've written after going home maybe people who take drugs must be feeling this high, that is the only thing I can say about it. Thank you.
Since the incentives from the United States had been finished, and I had to wait for those 3 years to get here, there was also a Canadian intensive that was happening, a mixture of Canada and somewhere, and Mary Dunn got a spot. And she said, oh, you can go into that intensive and then take general classes afterwards. So I was in that intensive, and there weren't as many props around, so you had to share. There was one thing we had to do with Ekapada Virindrasana, one leg up, one chair. There was 3 people had to share the prop. So there's a belt underneath and a belt on the foot. And I had come out of the pose and standing there after finishing, and Gita was teaching, but then Guruji also had to teach, and they came back and forth, and Gita was teaching about the leg, but Guruji wanted to do something with the arms on the bottom of the chair belt. And you had to be able to do both of those things, and you didn't know which one to listen to. And so I got out of the chair, and I was standing there, and Gita came over and said, why aren't you helping her? Can't you see she's struggling to get the belt? So I bent over to help her, and she turned, and Guruji said, why are you helping her? She'll never learn to do it on her own if you do it for her. So, and I thought, did they just plan that? So I learned to be in the present.
I'm back to the library. I loved being in the library. I spent every afternoon that I could in the library, and he would just kind of look at me and every so often say, hey, Lori. I was like, yes, sir. And he said, I never was going to return to your country before Priscilla Neal and Mary Palmer got him to come back. He had come in the 50s. And I said, well, why is that, Guruji? And he said, because of your apartheid politics. So then he and I get into this political discussion, and it struck me what a worldly man he was. And it wasn't just about India, that he accepted every culture, and he saw the problems and he saw the beauty. And it just made a huge impression on me that we were talking about life and politics and government and life in general. And then you'd get up here and it's all about other things. But that part of it was really important for me.
And on the lighter side, I want to share this with you because I was in medical classes, and many of you have been in medical classes, and we were fortunate enough to experience the brilliance of that single touch that changed everything. And I was in the library to interview Guruji, and I said to him, Guruji, it's so amazing how you can just touch something and everything changes. And he looks at me, he says, I have no idea how I do it. And I said, you have no idea how you do it? And he said, I don't know, it's a God-given gift. I just have it, and I just know where to touch. Well, how are you going to write an interview and explain to people that this man has no idea how he does it, and we're all looking to him for guidance how to do it? So I didn't know what to do. Do I write down, he has no idea how he does it? Do I write down, we all think we have an idea how he does it? I don't know what to do. So finally, I just compromised. And we said, God has given Guruji a gift. And so that's how I solved the problem of I have no idea how to do it. I don't know what I'm doing. But it was so funny. It was so honest to say that. How many people are going to say, I don't know what I'm doing, I just do it. But that's who Guruji was. He was a honest, he was a very, very honest person. And I was so impressed by that because over the years, I've seen so many dishonest, or I don't know if I want to call them dishonest, but people who bend the truth in talking about yoga. The other thing I want to share with you, because you brought up about picnics, and I didn't hear anybody say anything about picnics. We had the greatest time in 70, was it in 76? I can't remember. We went on this picnic with Guruji. There were a bunch of us, And what do you wear on a picnic with Guruji? What are you going to expect on a picnic with Guruji? We went someplace outside of Pune. He didn't tell us where we were going. And it was very rocky and there were little streams coming down. And we were all wondering what we we're going to do there besides eat. And the next thing you know is Guruji is in the little stream sliding down. And that was, I have pictures of that, of him sliding down on the rocks. And then we all thought, oh, well, he can do it, we can do it. So that's what we did. We spent the afternoon soaking wet, sliding down on the rocks and having fun. And that was one of the other sides of Guruji that was so great. You know, we participated, he let us. He let us.
I'm also back to the picnic. The, the first time I was here in Pune, I was very impressed that Saturday or Sunday we would go out for the picnic. And then we were serving food, and sometimes Gita or a sister were serving us food, and the food was on the banana leaf, and we could talk with Guruji like a normal person, like an old friend. You could, he was interested on anything, and was for me was very important, this part, because as much as I was afraid of him in the yoga class, as much as I was hiding all the time on back of that column, and sometimes he could run and catch me no matter how much I was hiding. But when we were outside in this picnic with all the family, it was really beautiful and great, and really touched my heart.
When I first came, because I was associated with Barjo Tarparwala, and I went to Mumbai every single weekend of that whole first 2 months that I was here to take classes with Guruji. After the Saturday class, we would have a little kind of a snack time. And we'd go to somebody's house, and I would always be going because I was with Barjo. And it was amazing. He talked about everything. He could talk about cricket. He could talk about politics, as you mentioned. He could talk about, he was always concerned about family. You know, after I started having children, he would always ask me, and if I would write him a letter, he would say, no, you know, I want to know about your family and your kids. And then when I was here with my husband, which was several times actually, but 1983 first, and then there were a couple of times when my husband took sabbaticals and we came for an extended period of time. And he was a chemist, so he was teaching at Pune University. And Guruji, when he would be in class, Guruji would always make some analysis to chemistry, how the mercury flowed, or you know, some element analysis to chemistry. So you know, he really related to absolutely everybody, and he made an effort to do that. And also, I want to tell you about one time when I was in the garden with my husband. My husband was extremely stiff. And we were in the garden, and Guruji came by and he said, you know, he's actually. Hello? Try this one. Okay. He's actually lucky. With stiff people, you can stimulate the nervous system. You can't do that with flexible people. My husband was extremely proud to find out that, you know, being stiff was actually a good thing.
One year, well, if I happened to be here during a celebration, which was often, I'd get involved in decorating the institute and sorry, thank you. So we were here, you know, till quite late with a team of people with scissors and colored paper and scotch tape and cutting out animated yoga poses and putting them up and mandalas and yantras and what have you. And well, at one point, Guruji found out that we were here late and sent over tea. That was very sweet. But I'm on the floor on cutting these things out, and a pair of feet appears here in front of me, and I follow the feet up, and it's Guruji. And he's looking at these figures that I'm cutting out, and he's correcting them. So, no, the arm is, you've got the angle wrong and the legs wrong. And so, but he could indeed talk to anyone and would be involved in everything, and was, yes, the most compassionate person I've ever met, but also the smartest, I think. So.
I think, as you can see, 30, 40, 50 years of memories. And in 1 hour, even a day is not sufficient. But just a couple of things I would like to sort of talk about. One is, while we're thinking about Guruji, memories also come back about Gita ji. We all remember that Gita ji had eyes. Like we talk of Guruji's power, Gita ji's eyes could see through the pillar. And I know often in ladies' classes, people would try to hide. By the time the hall had been widened, literally hide. And there was a time where Gita ji would be on stage and the person thought they're out of her gaze. It never happened. And possibly a gaze went right there. Hey, you, if you didn't know the name, get them. And there were also some interesting moments. And this is something, where we are so culturally different. And each of us are brought out in different cultures. And here there was a person who was in class, and the person made a mistake or didn't do things as expected. So Gita ji asked her, how long have you been coming here? Oh, many years. How many times have you come to the institute? And this person took, everything literally. So she said, I'll have to check my passport. And Gita ji didn't know whether to get furious or laugh. And I asked her, why were you acting smart trying to tell Gita ji, I'll have to. No, how can I give her a wrong answer? I'd have come so many times. And that's when you realize, we are so different, but yet we all become one here. It's also interesting when Joan talked about Guruji saying, I just do it. But the fact remains that whatever he just did it, he actually explained and articulated and got us to do that. Today we are thousands of teachers across the countries who are far, far away from Guruji Gitaji Prashantji, but we are still able to change people's lives. So although his intuitions were so powerful, his expressions were still there that yoga could be brought. And she talked about a photo shoot. And that, all of us are in awe of these photographs. I think even if we've seen them 1,000 times, we're still going to be awe of the photographs of Light on Yoga. And I just thought once, when we were having the photo shoot for the sports book, at that point of time, there were 6, 7 people who were asked to come. We had digital cameras, obviously. We are in mid-2000. And these 6 people were asked to do an asana. And then Guruji and Gita ji would pick up, okay, these 2 would be there in front of the camera and take pictures. And even after that, that few seconds to be steady, like your finger would move. I realized videos are easier than photographs because you had to be static. Like little bit of the toe moves, it's captured. And then you realized, and then the photographer would show the digital, Murli may remember, he's around. Look at the camera and say, okay, this is not correct, repeat it. And then you wondered, how did he do Light on Yoga photographs? There was no screen. Maybe Gitaji, Prashantji were in the front, but still, just the shadows, the light, and then Guruji was beyond. So I think, Abhijata, yes, time is nearly up. So I would like to summarize, what does the Institute teach us? Our lives are intertwined with the Institute. It's not a part of life. I think it's our life. One thing we all learned, it teaches us simplicity. I mean, there's no question of mask or anything. We become what we are here. There's nothing to show here because we come back to ourselves. It teaches us the power of practice, and practice not just as, as Prashantji would say, yoga, AA, but actually getting within us. It shows us the inner strength, and all of us through life would have gone through ups and downs, and I mean, how it has helped us straight. It teaches us humility. And if our I-ness gets subdued, then it is possible for the intelligence to surface. Then it is possible for us to someday get into the real state of yoga. And in a very humorous manner, James mentioned about being in the present, being in the moment. It's all very nice to say be in the moment, but we always go back. I could do this, I did this. But actually, when you're in class, we are neither in the past, neither in the future. And I'm sure what we learn here is far beyond what is being taught. And of course, our teachers are teaching us so much that we barely take in anything. To have the concluding remarks, I would like to invite Father Joe Pereira, who has been here with us since 1967. So, Father, the concluding remarks from you.
Thank you, Rajvi. I first met Guruji in Pune when I was doing my licentiate at the Papal Seminary, which is affiliated to the University, Gregorian University in Rome. He came there with a group of people. Geetaji was there. I don't think, Prashant, you were there, but Geetaji was there. Father Anthony Lobo was there, and he gave us a demonstration. That was in January 1968. After that, in August, when I was transferred to Bombay, I attended U.D. Menuhin's concert, and he introduced him as his newfound violin instructor. I walked up to him at the end of the program, and I said, Guruji, do you have classes in Bombay? He said, yes, but I'm having trouble because I'm having it in a Catholic institution where they are doubting whether we should continue. So I said, may I join? He said, yes, willingly. So I joined. And when I went there, I saw that proverbial man called Brother Tot. Do you remember Brother Tot? How he used to shout in class when Guruji used to correct him. He said, Joe, if you are doing this, then I'll speak to the superior and we get the permission to use the hall. From 1974 to 1980, all classes were conducted in church institutions thanks to Guruji's generosity of including everyone. That was my first encounter. Second encounter, when actually I met him in Bombay, but then he kept on helping me with my work. My work, I used to always introduce myself to people in my speeches as I have a Ida Pingla and Sushumna Nadis. And my Sushumna Nadi is the God of my understanding, which is Jesus. But Ida and Pingala, I used to say Guruji and BKS Iyengar. And why? Because the common denominator was Karuna, compassion. She taught me to go to the poorest of the poor, and he taught me to go to the poorest of the poor in health. And who is the latest kid on the block? My Archbishop Cardinal, he's a cancer survivor, and his physiotherapist said, better call Joe, because his breath was going out of order. So many such incidences, and Guruji came to my center in Vasai in the 1980s and inaugurated my Vasai Hall. That building was built by the European Economic Commission. And so Guruji, we dedicated that hall to him. Then he kept on constantly helping me with my addicts and alcoholics. And 2006, when we completed 25 years, he came to Rang Sharda in Bombay and he presented the program and he was touched by the sharing of 2 HIV patients. So he said, Joe, send them to me. I sent them to Guruji. That time their CD4 count was below 500. After 6 weeks, they came back. And guess what? The CD4 count was 1,500. Guruji always was aware that we are spreading his message all around 44 countries and 130 countries through the combination of the World Community for Christian Meditation, where I even had the opportunity to take this teaching of Guruji to Lee Kuan Yew, who openly acknowledged that this form of meditation was more powerful than the previous one that he was celebrating. I am deeply aware that Guruji lives in us. We all, and we are expression of his love. And unless we have, and for me, Guruji was always a deeply spiritual man. My teaching of Iyengar Yoga is not just Bahiranga, not even just Antaranga. It is Antaratmik. And because of that, I have managed to get people of all faiths together. We are the largest in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, thanks be to Guruji's grace. We are in 21 centers in India, and the 22nd center is coming up in Jammu and Kashmir. I need volunteers. What's common about Mother Teresa and Guruji? She always said, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do it to me. And what did Guruji teach me? Yoma pashati sarvatra, sarvancha mai pashati. Tasyaham na pranashami, sachameva na pranashyati. There's a little addition to the Bhagavad Gita quote, which says that such a person who sees me and all beings, I will never reject, nor he.
So we come to the end of this session. I apologize because I'm sure each one of you sitting in the hall and outside the halls would have memories to share. So I request that if you have something to say, you can write down your anecdotes, yr@bksanger.com. Please share it. I'm sure there are people across the world who would be inspired by that. So thank you so much. And over to Amruta. Email address yr@bksanger.com. And anyway, this program is telecast live on YouTube, so we'll put it up there too. So thank you. Over to you, Amruta.
We have a small 15 minutes break because we are going to now arrange for a special program. That will be the concluding program. Okay. Thank you, all of you. Please keep in mind it's a 15 minutes break only. So you could try a few asanas, hand stretching, twisting, or you want to take a quick walk, washroom break. I request you to settle down, please. "15 minutes are almost over. We've lost the sense of time. Please be seated. I request you to settle down. The platform is ready. The actors are ready. And also, please leave a passage free for Prashantji to walk till the chair.
Okay. In the interest of time, we are not going to wait for everybody to enter and settle down. It's going to take a long time. Silence, please. Can you hear me, or is it because the silence? I don't hear silence. That's the problem. Okay. All right. So we have the next concluding part of the program. It's something called moot court. That is enactment of one act of one pillar of democracy, which is judiciary. But right now we have someone special with us who's from the other pillar of democracy, which is legislature. So we have the member of Legislative Assembly from the Shivajinagar constituency, but that is not his primary identity when it comes to the institute. He's a old timer. He's a family friend. His aunt has been coming here ever since I was born. I don't know if I can say that openly, Shilpatai, but it is what it is, right? You can't. If I am Guruji's grandson, I'm here with the mic. I should. Yes. So thank you, Shilpatai. So Siddharth is a great person. I sort of nothing to do with politics. I sort of knew that he's going to grow big, and I'll tell you why. It's a personal story, but I'll tell you why it's important he's here, right? Usually we call his office a lot. And when we call his office, it's not for a good thing, right? That is the very nature of his job. Something wrong with the civic utilities, power, drainage, water, garbage, you name it. So if you think model colony is still pretty nice, if you think Shivajinagar is not bad, a lot of credit goes to him and his team, right? He has a program, so, and we all also need to leave, so I won't take too long, but I'll tell you the personal story where I thought he's really going to grow big one day. It is very personal. It really mattered to me. This was during the second wave of COVID, right? We didn't know what the disease was. I really thought I'm going to die, and I'm not exaggerating. It's not a joke. Don't laugh. I really thought I was. It was bad, and Prashantji was obviously down. I got a call from Siddharth. Now I know why he called me, right? I know my place. It's not for me. He called to inquire about Prashantji. But he said a lot of things which touched me a lot. He said, you know what, if there's anything, I'll help you. Things so bad, the hospitals were full. He said, don't worry, I'm here to take care of you. And to me, that mattered a great deal. Siddharth, thank you so much. I don't know if you remember that story, but to me, I'll never forget the rest of my life. So thank you so much. So continue helping us and supporting us, Siddharth, as always. Uday, just as a token of commemorating his visit here today, giving it to Prashant sir, just a gift. Uday, you're supposed to. You thought it's a gift for Prashantji? No. Thank you, Jitendra. And thank you for the team for getting him here. Now, usually politicians, I wouldn't dare pull their leg. Not on a public forum. With Siddhartha, I can. No, don't worry. He's not going to take the mic. He's not going to give a speech. Thank you so much.
So today's special program, a unique moot court dedicated to the exploration, and deeper understanding of Iyengar yoga. This event is not just a formal discussion, but an opportunity to delve into the principles, philosophy, and practice of this transformative yoga tradition. Iyengar yoga, named after the legendary Yogacharya BKS Iyengar, is renowned for its emphasis on precision, alignment, and the use of props to make yoga accessible to all. Through this moot court, we aim to engage in a lively exchange of ideas, unraveling its nuances and understanding its impact on physical, mental, and spiritual well being. Today's session will allow us to reflect, question, appreciate the legacy of Iyengar Yoga. Let us all participate with open minds and hearts as we embark on this enlightening journey. Thank you, and let the proceedings begin. Over to Raya.
Good morning. I'm student of this institute for a while. I have been also teaching here, and I stand here in the, I'll need that. Huh? I stand here from the side of the public, from the side of the student body, and from the larger community. As the space itself is crossing 50 years, the system is another story. So to defend that, I invite Abhijata Iyengar, and take the seat, please. And the person who can be most centered and non-partial, who can see things how they are, who is better person, who actually needs no introduction other than Prashantji. I request him to be the judge. तिथेच बसला तरी चालेल. प्रशांत तिथेच बसला तरी चालेल. All right. I need this. So since it's the system that I'm following, can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Abhijata Iyengar.
Okay. Who are you representing?
I am representing Ramamani Iyengar Memorial Yoga Institute that stands in Pune Tall, completing 50 years.
And what does Ramamani Iyengar Yoga Institute do? What happens there?
In the institute, yoga is taught. Students come from all over to learn the subject of yoga.
We have different kinds of yoga world over. There's sheep yoga, there's other forms of yoga. So what kind of yoga does your institute teach?
Yoga based on the teachings of our dear Guruji, BKS Iyengar, Iyengar Yoga.
Okay. And there comes our first allegation. Because on the record, we have found that Guruji BKS Iyengar himself has said, there is nothing like Iyengar Yoga. And here, you're claiming that you're teaching Iyengar Yoga. Isn't there a problem?
Both these statements are true. There is no problem. There is no discrepancy here.
The person who himself has taken this position, there is nothing like Iyengar Yoga, and we are still holding on to that. How do you not see the problem?
Will you give me some time to explain this?
Please.
Let's go back and look at how it all began. Because it is not just whether is this Iyengar Yoga or is this not Iyengar Yoga. There cannot be a one-line answer here. It's a process. What we are talking about here is a process. When this boy Sundara Raja moved to Pune at the order of his guru to spread yoga to the people here, he didn't come here with a decision, okay, now I'll teach the people Iyengar Yoga. He came here, we know his story, the hard work, the dedication, the involvement, the intensity, the perseverance with which he made discoveries about yoga. Now, along the line, what happened was that the people, the students thought, oh, this is so wonderful. Like we heard 20 minutes ago, where the people thought, oh, they felt lit up. They felt their life was enlivened by this. So these students, which includes me, which includes you, on part of our convenience, we call it Iyengar Yoga to associate what we are learning with the teachings of our Guru. It's not like Iyengar Yoga is extracted from yoga and it is labeled. It's not like, lemon juice is extracted from a lemon. Yoga was always there. You heard the kids yesterday. Yoga was always there. Lord Shiva is the Adi Yogi. So yoga is a historical process that runs for thousands of years. At one point in time, Patanjali codified yoga. So does that mean before Patanjali there was no yoga? Of course not. It was there. In the same manner, at one point in time, our dear Guruji stumbled upon a journey, and we refer to it as Iyengar Yoga.
Well, I'm supposed to be asking you and making allegations, but there's something that struck me. You are saying that, like, say, Marathi or Hindi or Gujarati came from Sanskrit. So there is larger yoga, and this has changed language in Iyengar Yoga. What do you teach in Iyengar Yoga?
We start with asana and pranayama. So the classes that run here, what is taught here is asana for the first few years, and then asana and pranayama both.
And asana from Hatha Yoga Pradipika or Ashtanga Yoga, or where do you bring the asanas from?
Like I told you, at different points, yoga got interpreted. Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Yoga Chudamani, it speaks of 6 limbs. Ashtanga Yoga Patanjali, it speaks of 8 limbs. But what our Guruji found out, how do you make a beginning? Like our friend mentioned a while ago, yoga, what is this yoga? If I tell you, come on, I'm going to take you to a remote village in India for a spiritual enrichment, without telling you what's going to happen there, what does it look like? How do you identify if you reach the destination? You know nothing. Will you take up such a journey? No. You want to know where you're going. You want to know what's going to happen. You want to know how long it will take you to get back. With all this information is only when, it's only after this will you develop the courage to undertake this journey. In that manner, yoga is mukti. But what is mukti? Life is going pretty well for all of us. We are happy, you're comfortable. I mean, yes, there are discomforts that come along the way, but it's not like we want a different life right now. So if you're pretty comfortable, how do you associate with mukti? So here what Guruji discovered was, I will give you a concrete destination. Start with the body because the body is a concrete structure. Start with the asanas because the asana is a concrete structure. When these two concretes come together, I'll then show you what the nectar of yoga can be.
So for general public, you are saying that you can stick to asanas and that's it.
Sorry?
For general public, asanas are good enough.
Hmm?
Is that what you are saying?
To start off, yes.
To start off. But then you were mentioning Patanjali, and in Ashtanga Yoga, there are other limbs that are involved. Where do you incorporate those in your teachings, or they are not even mentioned, considered?
After you start your journey of asana, and then when you're introduced to pranayama, there is a shift that happens within each one of us. Is yoga a vehicle that's going to transport you to another world altogether? No. Yoga is those glasses that you wear with which you see things clearly. So when you start with the asana and pranayama, there is something that happens to your system. By system, I mean something happening to your body, your skeletal-muscular body, your physiological body, your psychological body. And when this happens, the other layers of Ashtanga Yoga start revealing themselves to you.
But madam, most perceived and most observed known fact in about Iyengar Yoga is that the fact that constantly it's being taught asanas and nothing beyond body. Straighten here, lengthen there, extend here, suck here, push there. Beyond that, it doesn't move. That's what the general observation has been.
By
everyone.
Okay. Okay.
So in that case, when do you shift the paradigm?
Again, we'll have to go back a little. Let me explain the process here. How many of you have been on treks? How many of you climb up hills? Yeah, quite a few of you. 2 hands, some of you. So you see, along this journey, so if you think of the pinnacle of the mountain, the apex of the mountain as yoga, how do you get there? How do you get there? What happened was, years and years ago, there were certain people who walked along the hill and reached the destination. Some people may have taken this route, some people may have taken that route. What happened with our Guruji's journey was along his trek that he took to reach the top of the mountain, he made notes of the journey. And he was kind enough to share the notes of his journey with us. So through these notes, what we as junior trekkers now know is this is a wonderful pathway to reach the top. Will no other path along the mountain take you to the top? It will. But the fact of the matter is, when I know that BK Iyengar, our dear Guruji, has walked this path and he's reached the top, I am confident to take this journey. Along the way, there may be jungles, there may be darkness, there may be animals. You don't know what's coming along your way. The fact is, when we walk this journey that Guruji has recommended, that Guruji has gone through already, it gives me the courage to walk that path. And that is why 24 years later, after my first move to Pune, I'm still here. So when you begin your journey of yoga with the asanas and pranayama, at some point in time, there is a shift that happens. And this shift cannot be instructed. Like Prashantji was telling us yesterday, that nowadays the teachings are about instructions, what you mentioned, the elbow, the shoulder, the knee, and the thigh.
So you agree with the allegation?
It's a statement. I agree with the statement, but if it's an allegation, I don't agree.
Elaborate.
Can we have some, Shwetan, can you come up on stage? You want to do Trikonasana? Comfortable? So when you talk about instructions in an asana, which may be your knee, which may be your thigh.
I can show the instructions.
Okay, please.
First of all, your distance is not correct. Increase the distance, not reduce. and your big toe is coming up. Press that inner step, the outer step of that, and suck that outer knee of the front leg and the outer knee of that from front to back. Move. And now start sucking the left hip and open the right pelvic away from it. You're doing one at a time. You're not allowing that to be firm there.
I think
Where is your attention?
I think Chris will have to reiterate. You're teaching from the head and not from the heart. Shweta, yeah, I get the gist of what you're saying.
So is it rule based? Is it like sometimes I feel those instructions turn into, if I may say so, nails in the coffin?
Come up, Shwetang. We don't want to nail you. Many of us here have taken a flight. Yeah? How many of you have been in a flight, an aeroplane? Okay. The others, a train journey, a bus journey, any journey that you undertake. Now, let me take the analogy of a flight. Now, when you are taking a flight from, say, here to Mumbai, or I'm sorry, to Kolkata, to Nai Delhi, when you go to these places, the aircraft is meant for you to be transported from one place to another. The aircraft is meant to give you an experience of the flying. Now, in the aircraft, if you go to the cockpit, how many of you have seen the cockpit? Just Google it if you want right now. If you just look at the image of a cockpit, you will be stunned. You will be stunned with the amount of detailing that is there in the cockpit. There are buttons all over. There are devices on top, all around. It will seem like you're in an alien ship. Okay? Oh, airplane is for flying. Why do we need the cockpit? It's absurd. It's absurd to say that we can fly. Flying is about being in the air. Why do you need the cockpit? Of course you need the cockpit because it is the cockpit which is going to make your flight possible. You know, if you talk to anybody here in the aviation industry, pilots, yes. So there is a checklist, right? There is a checklist. I'm sorry if I can use the audience as my witness. So there is a checklist that they have to go through. Okay, fuel tank, pressure pump, oxygen, crew, sitting, seat belt, lights, brakes, front wheel, back wheel. There are all these things that are mentioned in the checklist. Now imagine you're undertaking a journey and the pilot announces that we are 95% good to go. 5% the checklist is unchecked, but we will take the journey. Will you continue your sitting in the flight? No, not at all. So what may seem as rigidity, what may seem as rules, what may seem as techniques, what may seem as the cockpit is the stuff that is needed to make the flight possible. Once you fly, the cockpit seems redundant, but you cannot do without it. Once you have the experience of the asana, the techniques fade away. The techniques may appear to be too rigid if you stick to the rules of the cockpit. If you stick to the checklist, yes, it is extremely dry. It is nails of a coffin. But once you have the experience of the flying, what is the experience of the flying? The wow, seeing the clouds under. Horizon gets a whole new meaning. When you have this experience, then what you say is rigidity, what you say is nails on a coffin, is no longer that.
Well, the problem is in a classroom setup, then most of the people are getting on the flight, putting the seat belt, but does the flight actually take off in a class?
Let's consider a beginner's class.
Does it? The outside people have reported earlier that it does. Please.
In a beginner's class, the flight has to be short. It's a slow altitude flight. It's a short flight. You know, when some people, you've been with friends who are afraid of flying. Yeah. So a beginner's class is such that it's a short duration flight. It's a low altitude flight such that the resistances to flying are removed. A 5-minute flight, a 10-minute flight, and the resistances to this flying experience are removed. A beginner's class starts with that. And at the end of the class, it is the experience that needs to be taken care of here. Now, the teacher community here, the practitioner community here, we have to realize that what we are looking for is not to learn by heart the rules of the flying, the cockpit. It is not about the cockpit tour. We need to realize that it is the experience of flying that needs to be generated. So if we stick to the cockpit and the checklist, then yes, then it's true. But for as long as we realize that we are here to give the students the experience of the flying, it takes a whole new meaning.
But I want to, like, you mentioned two more rules, categories. One was the fact that you mentioned students, those who are coming to the classes, those who are attending beginners classes and any other level classes. But then you spoke about practitioners and teachers. What's the difference between a student who attends a class and a practitioner? How do you separate them?
You know, flights run on autopilot mode. The pilot is so confident that the aircraft is going to fly that the pilot is comfortable to leave the cockpit and come and chat with the passengers. Yoga, the sadhana of yoga, is to make each student a pilot. And when this journey a student is able to undertake, the student has become a practitioner.
And it sounds much easier. Can you slightly take it to 0.25x and slow it down for us?
If you recollect what Ramaswamy sir told about Shirshasan, that he's there in Shirshasan and typically he would come down in 3 minutes. And that day, there is Guruji in front of him. Guruji is being the pilot who's hand-holding Ramaswamy and telling him, the flight is fine. You don't have to disembark so soon. Hold on. And when Guruji made that insistence to the student, Ramaswamy, when he came down, had this brilliant experience of flying. So it's the insistence of the teacher to start off in the beginning that makes a student go beyond what the student thinks is possible.
And so it is required that the fact that student begins to fly by themselves without the teacher. So that's my next allegation, that in Iyengar Yoga community, we are highly teacher dependent. We are highly stuck to our teachers, and without, it's a typical notion that happens that, oh, things happen in a particular manner to a greater limits when the teacher is there, and then it doesn't work out. So how do you connect that? What is practice?
I think before we go to practice, we should speak a little more about classes because an autopilot mode is not given right away.
Please.
Can someone volunteer if you can be in Paschimottanasana? So in a beginner's class, when the student she's able to touch her feet, and when the student is unable to touch the feet, there were stories about, Guruji helping them, touching, pulling, pushing, making them reach the Paschimottanasana, stay there, keep the back of your knees down, which you say were the techniques of Iyengar Yoga. This class scenario starts opening up your mind to what you are not comfortable with. Now, I have heard another allegation. I don't know if I am allowed to accuse myself.
Please. Be my guest.
Come up. This concept of demand has come to my ears many times.
Oh, yes.
So we can say that it was Guruji who inspired Ramaswamy to stay there. But another perspective can be that Guruji insisted and forced Ramaswamy to stay there. They are both factually right. For someone who's just seeing the scene from outside, Guruji forced Ramaswamy to not come out, to not come down from Shirshasana.
Exactly.
And this demand is often considered as a problem in our system. Now, again, like I told you before, When a teacher is, I have the aims and objectives of the institute here with me. To initiate, this is the aims and objectives of the institute when it was established in 1975. Nowhere does it say Iyengar Yoga. So here is my evidence.
Okay. So then
it says to initiate aspiring individuals in yoga, irrespective of caste, creed, color, sex, religion, and nationality. To propagate the value of yogic order of living. So now if you see, from doing a class, from learning the techniques of an asana, there is a shift that happens. But let's come back to the demand. So what I'm saying is, when you are initiating an aspiring individual, what is a demand? What do you think is a demand? Can I Google up and see what demand is?
please.
To ask for something forcefully in a way that shows that you do not expect to be refused. Okay, this is what is a demand. Now, there is a parallax error, the concept of parallax error when you look at things. Just put your finger in front, all of you. And, or you point to something with your finger, with both your eyes open. Look at the same object, close one eye, the finger is pointing at a different spot. Okay, so has the object shifted? No. Okay, it's a parallax error. In the same manner, I think there has to be a definition of a concept called auditory parallax.
Okay.
Prashantji has given us the freedom. He has given us the freedom to use English in a way that, helps you express what you want. So there is this auditory parallax, I feel. I have been a student of Guruji. Was I forced by Guruji? In the beginning, yes. I felt it was forced. There were times when I had to be in Paschimottanasana for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And like all the other students, I have gone complaining to my uncle. I have gone complaining to my aunt that, oh God, he's expecting too much. 10 minutes, he's tied me up and he's not letting me go. But I wanted to come back the next day. When you consider the concept of stress, often they say there is a positive stress and there is a negative stress. What is a positive stress? It is such that it gives you an impetus to do something. When it crosses a certain line, of course, who decides where the line is? But when it crosses a certain line, it becomes a negative stress that you wish you were not there for the exam, that you wish you were not present here. But the thing that happens that happened in the institute here is that with this so-called demand, since I have to use the same word, with this so-called demand, there was not a feeling that came in that I should not go back here. So in a beginner's class, when a teacher demands a student, if the teacher can make the feeling surface, if the teacher can ignite that spark of enthusiasm that, oh, there's something in this, I want to go back and see, that demand is a positive demand, even though it's the same word. The line here is the teacher able to allow that feeling to surface? Is the teacher able to surface the feeling for the subject, the love for the subject, the curiosity for the subject, the feeling, the love for oneself? If this feeling can surface, this demand, this accusation is not, I completely disagree with this accusation. If this feeling is not generated, it's a problem.
Okay. So when we are talking about the demand part of it, when we are talking about the rules part of it, another thing that has been observed is the teacher's side. They have a typical language that is being spoken. It's a typical instructions, how to sit before the invocation. Sit straight, all of you. Put your hands, can't just here. Put your hands behind your hips, roll your shoulders, suck your shoulder blades in, lift your chest, widen the shoulder further and further. Don't stop doing it. Raise that chest, head neck straight. Where is your attention? Why are you looking here and there? Keep your head neck straight. Now, being tall, being straight, close your eyes and be calm. Now, isn't that odd to demand someone else's calmness? So there is a kind of language that seemed to be followed over and over and over again. That is again sounds very tight and rigid.
Okay. Again, I don't know if I love history. It was not one of my favorite subjects when I was in school, but I want to go back. But I want to go back in time. You know, when we speak of demand, when you speak of instructions, there is another side to it, like head and tail of a coin. What I've realized when Guruji, Gitaji or Prashantji made me do things and insisted that I do things, there was a demand on this side, there was an acceptance on this side.
Doesn't make sense.
I think it's not taught in judiciary. It's taught in yoga. There's a demand on this side and there is an acceptance on this side. When Guruji started yoga, go back in time to the 1930s, yoga was not for all. It was considered a guhya vidya. So if you were opening it out to the public, it was scandalous. It was not accepted at all. And Guruji's experience told him that, oh no, yoga is brilliant. It has to be for everyone because it can change one's life. It generates the joy of living. So this is for everyone. So when Guruji made this transition of taking a Guhya Vidya, a secretive subject, to the people, when this esoteric, abstract subject had to be brought to the people, a language had to come. You see, before Guruji, Atma, Chitta, Kaivalya, Mukti, do you think these words would not have been used in the same connotation that you mentioned? Of course, it would have been. What Guruji did was he brought his subjective experience to the people such that what he experienced, his acceptance, his faith was, if I can, I'm talking about Guruji, if he could experience it, everybody could experience it because they are just human beings like him.
But madam, in that case, the objective part of teaching, constantly objective part, and you are just talking about the subjective experience, where do they interact? They almost sound like, as he says, oil and water.
I get what you're saying. But to convert this subjective Guhya Vidya into a subject that can be felt by people, a language had to be developed. Without language, how are you going to reach people? How are you going to reach the people without a language? In the olden days, when Prashantji was telling us the story yesterday, he made people do, there was touching, instructions were far few because it was more of a private tuition where you could make people experience. If in Paschimottanasana, I have to tell 100 people, take the back down, take the chest forward, take the waist corners forward, I have to develop a language to reach out to the so many people. And what Guruji used to do those days was, after all the pulling and pushing was done, he would have kept his hand here. I have experienced it. He kept my hand here. He kept a weight here and he said, surrender. Surrender?
So is that a demand?
Of course not.
So
of course not. Of course not. I'll get to that. So when he speaks of surrender, how do you understand surrender? What is surrender?
Or calm down.
How do you do that? What is that?
How do you objectify that?
Exactly. Thank you. How do you objectify something? How do you give a language to something? So here Guruji developed a language which has become our instructions now. Our chest up in Tadasana is an objective language. Open the chest. I don't know if there were doctors here, they would be astounded with our instruction of open the chest. What do you mean by open the chest?
The Hanuman scene.
I remember in one of the classes, Prashantji saying, oh, shoulder blades in, such an obsession. I am surprised your shoulder blades are not coming out from the front. What is known as the instruction in Iyengar Yoga is Guruji's expression of a certain experience. In order to reach the people, when this language had to be developed, he felt in his body what's going on. He had to articulate it to people in an objective language that they can understand, because mukti is an unknown destination. In order to do this, he developed a language. Now, let's go back to Patanjali. He speaks of vritti, pratyaksha, anumana, agama. These are the forms of pramana. A vritti, pramana, which is direct cognition. How do you get to direct cognition? How do you get to cognition? By direct perception. So you see the colorful things here. This is pratyaksha. What is an anumana? An inference that, oh, so many papers have been cut, so many papers have been folded, so many papers have been stuck. This is an anumana. You infer something has been done, which is also a mode of perception. There is agama, there is testimony that this has been said, so let's not do it. So our faith in Guruji is such that we take what he says as agama. Now we have to link these two accusations here. To give the experience of flying, you need to give pratyaksha. You can't just give them a tour of the cockpit and put an agama there and say, know the cockpit perfectly well and you're going to fly. It's not going to happen. If we are able to convert Guruji's instructions, which we just demonstrated right now, if we are able to feel it, if the pratyaksha of that is being generated, we are fine. But if we only keep it to the plane of agama, inner ankle, outer ankle, inner heel, big toe, little toe, side rib, chest, sternum, it's a problem. If the agama does not translate into pratyaksha in the context of asana and pranayama, then the experience of flying is void. When the experience of flying is void, naturally, the teachers who don't have the experience, if they don't have the experience, it becomes an agama.
So then how does that teacher get the experience in the first place?
Practice.
We come to the next allegation. Practice is really overemphasized.
What do you mean?
Anything, any student has a question to a teacher, they just go and say, you go practice. Almost to such a level that it becomes an escape route for a teacher, that you haven't practiced enough to realize this, to feel this. Don't you think so? I have some support. Any question the students ask and the teacher says, practice.
Okay. Here my gurus were brilliant. My gurus were brilliant here because they never left it to me to practice.
So they demanded.
Of course not. They flew with me. Each class, each practice was such that this feeling surfaced. Now, when I was talking about the acceptance mode, for you to go to practice, you know, the brilliance of Guruji's teachings is his acceptance that if you have this body, we all have it, the body is there, yoga can be experienced. The body is there, the flight of yoga can be undertaken. This is the acceptance that I was referring to. You know, if in the Shiva Sutras, it's mentioned that the egg of the peacock, within that egg of the peacock, the yolk, the embryo, within that, there is this multicolored beauty of the feathers of the peacock. In that embryo, are you able to see the multicolored foliage of the peacock? Are you able to infer the dance of the peacock when the rain is going to pour? Are you able to see the turn of the neck of the peacock? These are the inferences that come. Or even in the Chandogya Upanishad, when you're talking about the self, the Guru says, take a banyan seed, cut the banyan seed, and what do you see? The disciple says, I see some particles. Okay, cut the particles, and what do you see? Something soft, jelly-like. What is inside it? There is nothing. Oh, but from this nothing, the Guru says, from this nothing, the whole banyan tree grows, sprouts, is formed. From this seeming nothingness, from this apparent nothingness, is this whole banyan tree. From this apparent egg is this beauty of the peacock. When we are able to realize that about our consciousness, then yoga is there. And for me here, Guruji's brilliance is his inference that within this body is the spark which is going to make yoga possible. Now, who doesn't have a body, we don't have to deal with them. They're not here right now.
Thankfully.
And hopefully.
No, but you were elaborating on the practice aspect, which I'm saying that is highly overemphasized. So when you are saying practice is what everyone needs to go to, what would incorporate, what can be put in that practice space? Is it only on the mat practice? I get 1 hour on the mat, I get 20 minutes per day, and that's how do you decide if that's enough or not enough, or who's done a good practice, who's done a bad practice? How do you pass a judgment about that?
We cannot pass a judgment on anyone's practice. Let's admit that. Each one's story is each one's story. What each one does in one's practice is one's own introspection. Kriya Yoga speaks of tapas, swadhyaya. It is the self-study. Our practice of asana, if you look at it as a tapas, our abhyasa of pranayama, if you look at it as tapas, at one point, this tapas has to transform into swadhyaya, which is your own study of it. Patanjali doesn't say your guru is going to validate whether you are proper in your Kriya Yoga. It is our Swadhyaya which is going to tell us, are you proper in it? How do you get to this Swadhyaya? Again, an objective language had to come in. So in your practice, using the objective language of whether Shirshasana you're staying is just one parameter of it. Paschimottanasana is your trunk going down is one symbol of it. It is not the be all and end all of it.
But most often we have seen that the practitioners put a clock or put a watch, the time, there's a phone kept, there's a um, uh, timer that's been put, and they're saying, oh, I practice all forward bends, every forward bend 5 minutes, and it's almost it's a ownership declaration that I bought this, and in a similar lines the people say that I got Paschimottanasana. It's as if they own it. Does it make sense?
Yeah. But
it makes sense that
no,
they own
what happened right now was you gave me an evidence for the first accusation. Can I go back? So you're talking about people doing something for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and having it. Can I have some water, please? And then having an ownership that I have done this. And when we speak about the nomenclature of our yoga, Iyengar yoga, here our dear Guruji said, this is not Iyengar yoga. For me, the easiest test of whether yoga has gotten down into someone is to see how they are in life, is to see their behavior in life. And this behavior comes from one's attitude. It would have been very easy for Guruji to declare that this is my discovery and I call it Iyengar Yoga. If you think of all the props in our system, if Guruji had indeed decided to patent the props, he would have been a multi-millionaire. The fact is, his attitude was such that prop is not my idea, because the idea of support was always there. The idea of support is always there. I just borrowed that support from nature and I designed a Vipridandasan bridge or a chair. And here we can see how starkly different Guruji is when we speak of this ownership attitude, because our dear Guruji had nothing like that. Coming back to practice.
Coming back to students, we have heard many times, so and so is my students, so and so is my student. So teachers claim ownership on students.
Really?
Yes, I can present a lot of evidence for that. And people get offended if someone say my student goes to your class, I'm offended.
A lot of introspection then needs to go on. A lot of introspection needs to go on. You see, when, as Joan pointed out, that Guruji is saying, I don't know how these things happen. It's God's grace. As a yoga student, As a yoga student, along with our tapas asana and pranayama, along with our sincere abhyasa of asana and pranayama, our pursuit of asana and pranayama, there is an undercurrent that we need to check whether that undercurrent is there or not. Praise, wasn't Guruji praised? Wasn't he applauded? Every time he was on stage, the applause wouldn't stop. Did he reject the applause? No. He accepted the applause wholeheartedly. But along with that, there was this substance of gratitude. When praise and gratitude go together, humility is there. If you're only taking the praise without the gratitude, there is no humility. And a mark of Guruji's humility is seen in evidences of his books, is seen in his evidences of, in his lectures. When Guruji says that when the student would come to me, I used to learn from the student. I used to see what that student is doing. Something better that a student is doing, I would try to imitate what that was going on. When a student would knock Guruji's door, he would say, God sent. They were, at that time, there were no students. People were not interested in yoga. And here God has sent students. So God is coming in the form of students to me. So I am what I am today because of my students. This speaks of the gratitude Guruji had for the entire society. So when praise and gratitude are combined, humility is a result. So now your accusation of somebody owning this is my student, that is my student, I cannot speak for them. I'm speaking for the system, and the system is ingrained with these elements.
Okay. Now the next section.
But I have missed out on telling you what is practice. Is
Please.
that... You see, when if you go to buy a house, property shopping, we have a real estate agent who's showing us, oh, this is the house, this is the locality, these many bedrooms, this is the view, this is the light, this is the ventilation, this is what you have all around, these are the amenities that we will offer. So a real estate agent all the time is trying to sell the house, and the real estate agent gets a commission from that. As a teacher, our job is to inspire a student to take to yoga. In that sense, like a real estate agent, a teacher is going to show a student the beauty of Adho Mukha Svanasana. A teacher is going to show the student the beauty of Shirshasana or Sarvangasana or Suptavirasana or Matsyasana. For practice, the real estate agent cannot make the structure a home. The real estate agent can sell the place to you by speaking of all its glory, but the real estate agent cannot make it your home. It is our energy that is going to make a house a home. The teacher is going to sell the asana because the teacher is there for that purpose, to show you about the elbows, about the leg, about the trunk, about the back, about the breath, about the mind, about your emotions in that Adho Mukha Svanasana. But it is your purchase, it is your energy that is going to, what is known as prana pratishtha. It is your energy that is going to do that for the asana. So in practice, is my energy going to give the prana into the asana so that I am in communion with my Atma? It is my own journey. It is not the real estate agent's job, and he cannot do it for me. Nobody else can do a prana pratishtha in my asana. A teacher can only show the way.
So you have put the teachers' fraternity under a little pressure, because you have called them pilots, you have called them real estate agents, you have called them, in certain sense, matchmakers of sorts. What are other expectations?
We have Gita Ji's statement here for the safety of our teachers, where she says, it is your own practice that can reveal the secrets to you, no one else.
So the teachers are relieved of all responsibility.
As long as they have an honest introspection of what they're doing, yes.
Okay. When it comes to practice and classes also, another allegation is Iyengar yoga classes do not happen without any props. Even the Sikhimat is not even considered a prop, but you need necessarily a sticky mat and a couple of bricks and a bolster and a blanket and ropes and whatnot. So is it true that necessarily it's absolutely mandatory to have certain kind of things and only then you can pursue your practice?
Is it allowed in law to use the judge as a witness?
We will make an exception in this case, considering.
No, when he was talking about the classes in Vidya Bhavan yesterday, when he was talking about the intensive in Vidya Bhavan, when he was talking about the classes that would happen door to door, I just want him to state whether they would carry the prop kits to the students to conduct the classes. We'll need a mic passed on there. So was a prop kit mandatory for someone to attend a yoga class in those days?
Mic then.
Hey, Mike, please pass on the mic.
कोणीतरी पकडा.
Hello. Not an extraneous prop, but we have inbuilt props. Your will is a prop. Are you will? You are not will. You have a will. Are you awareness? You are not awareness. You have an awareness. Are you mind? No, you have a mind.
Good.
So
the defense team has been strengthened.
the prop, we look at only extraneous props which are made up of some metal, some matter, and we take them and use them and put under our bodies or put over our bodies. But we are body of instruments. We ourselves are body of instruments. And therefore we are told philosophically that collocation of indriyas is human embodiment. Tell me a part of body which is not indriya. Any part of your embodiment, is it without indriya? Now what is that indriya? Indriya is an instrument. Indriya is a tool.
So prop is there for in all schools of yoga, not just Iyengar yoga. So which
when the inherent prop is not sufficiently powerful because of one being neophyte, beginner, who is not able to identify the prop within, we try to give prop from outside. You don't have will to do your Paschimottanasana with a flat back. For 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we put 50 pounds on your back. The 50 pounds keep your back flat for whatever duration expected. But suppose you have your own will is sufficiently trained and equipped and resourceful, you don't need 50 pounds on your back.
Thank you.
So props is Guruji exploration of prop was marvelous. Assuming that some people don't have inherent props, built-in props, extraneous props are needed, and therefore he liberally used extraneous external props.
Thank you.
But Iyengar yoga is not furniture yoga.
So I think here we again go back to the experience that a prop is able to generate. So when I was telling you about the experience of flying, when I was telling you about the Guhya Vidya becoming objective, there is another U-turn that needs to be made, that from this objective, we need to go back to subjective.
True.
So subjective brought to the realm of objectivity, and then this objectivity taking you back to the realm of subjectivity is a must. So that is why there is tapas and swadhyaya, both which are being defined in Kriya Yoga. So a teacher can be a wonderful generator of that experience. A prop can be a wonderful generator of that experience. And here, a prop becomes an asset because you are free from the struggle of holding the pose on your own. So in one sense, having the props makes you experience the subjectivity even better because I'm no longer engrossed in pulling myself or going down because the weight is doing my job. So it is to my benefit for the experience of Paschimottanasana that the prop is an aid.
Okay, the last bit I want to end with this is you are saying that there is an objective manual for DIY of yoga. Is that what Iyengar Yoga is claiming to be? Do it yourself.
You do it yourself, but there has to be this travel back to subjectivity, which no DIY kit is going to give you. If you take a rose, can you have a DIY of what all to infer from the rose? Wikipedia will tell you 1,000 facts about the rose. You just Google up about the rose and there can be 1,000 statements that come to you about a rose. Are those 1,000 statements going to give you the experience of the rose? No. Think of your favorite dish. Think of your favorite dish, each one of you here. Open up a recipe book and you will know how it's made. Okay, from the best chef in the world. You will get the DIY of how to make that food. Maybe with practice, you will become a master chef yourself and you will be able to prepare that dish. But the taste that that delicacy generates is your own journey. Nobody is going to be able to give you an objective manual of how to taste the food. What should be the experience that is generated when you taste the food? And if this food is a prasad from the temple, it's an altogether different emotion that is associated with it. So in that sense, this DIY manual is just to prepare the groundwork so that you're able to enjoy that food. And here, when Guruji speaks of joy of living through the practice of asana and pranayama, it takes a huge leap from the sticky mat, from Trikonasana, you are going on to life itself. And for those of us who have been with Guruji, this experience was generated, as we just saw, in the class, in the picnic, in the library, in the airport. It was generated everywhere because that energy was bubbling in him. And we can't just make it agama and say, Guruji did it, so we'll do it. Guruji said do Shirshasana in the airport, so let us all do Shirshasana in the airport. The security will probably frisk you away. So it cannot be a rigid agama that Guruji said it and so we will do it. With what Guruji has said, do we have an experience of that? And if that experience can come out, then it makes sense. So we need to come from agama to pratyaksha and use agama once again for development. So it's like the busiest airport. There are too many connections that go on.
Okay. We are going to have just 2 minutes. Either you can close your eyes and do whatever. I request the Honorable Judge to pass his judgment. Can you? It's what's
Hello. Well, we had two parties, accused and respondent. And
तू त्या बाजूला जा म्हणतायत कॅमेरासाठी.
So since it was a court scenario, we had a plaintiff and respondent. The accuser and accused. And this is going to be a perennial thing. Howsoever you successfully respond, the things don't end like it happens in judiciary, that you go to the final court, Supreme Court, and the things are adjudicated. And then you have no way to go beyond Supreme Court because that is Supreme Court. But it really doesn't happen like this here. So I have some sympathy for accuser as well. And of course, the accused person or the respondent person did exceptionally good to answer the objections or allegations that are made.
हे माईक धर ना तुमच्या पिकनिक.
So in the matter at hand, it has been duly acknowledged that the defendant, Abhijata Iyengar, has thoroughly addressed and clarified the allegations levied against the system. Upon careful review, the court finds that the claims have been explored and examined in a manner that reflects sensitivity, perceptiveness, and profound reflection on the subject matter. It is evident that many of the reactions to these allegations have been based on superficial assessments, hearsay, insufficient evidences. The science and art surface level, but demands an exploration into more profound aspects of human existence. The process described as the journey from yoga abhyas to yoga sadhana has been adequately delineated within the Iyengar system, with the defendant as representative of the system, affirming that Iyengar yoga begins with the body and progresses into deeper layers of existence, as Guruji articulated, body is my first prop, which encapsulates the essence of his practice. But I am having sympathy for the plaintiff also, because the teacher clans, the clan of teachers cannot be just teachers and cannot be just teaching. As we are aware of the fact, we say that it starts with body. If it can start with body, get a corpse and commence with it. So it is not proper to say that something begins with a body, or yoga begins with a body, or as the accuser would be satisfied if I support him. There is that ignorance saying that it starts with body, because the consciousness is embedded in it. And yoga actually is a scheme on chitta, for which there is no English word, no word in any language. It's a technical term. Are you all physically here? Yes. To be physically here, you are getting so many things within you to be involved. Otherwise, if that is not the case, if something is very physical and corporeal, we can get some corpses and they will easily yield to what we say, because we can handle them and make them. It is easy to put a corpse to Shirshasana by someone who can lift the person of the legs and get the person on the head. It is difficult to make everyone Shirshasana. The corpse won't resist, dead body won't resist. So there is nothing like physical and mental, or physical or mental. We are combination of so many aspects within us. What are we? Body, mind, breath, senses, psyche, consciousness, memory, intelligence, imaginations. Endless list. Endless list. So the accusation that something seems to be physical is redundant, or something seems to be mental, because there will be certain schools today, it's only Iyengar system which has been subjected to inquiry. But there are some other systems who say our yoga is mental. Ask them to keep their bodies back home and ask them to send their minds. Is it possible? So it's an integral existence of all these things. Although now I am here, and now I am 76 years old, the latencies of my earlier states are present in me. The latent Prashant who was crawling or who was kept in the cradle is very much here. Prashant who was breastfed is here. So it's a marvel to understand human embodiment. So not only that, from infanthood to 76 years of age, I am here. I am here even retrospectively from my previous incarnations as human being, or maybe any insect, worm, animal, beast, worm, a demon, God. I have been all that. And therefore, they are all present in us. So, yoga, somewhere the teachers have to give insight to the student, prepare the student to understand what one is. Swadhyaya is not just stand in front of the mirror and know thyself. So, teachers have great amount of responsibility to really be justifying and come out blemishless when a court of inquiry is set up. So this teacher clan has to understand the responsibility that there is less room for accusations, and if there are accusations, they are logically answered. Where that yoga is not on the mat. Yoga is not with something around you, a chair, a bolster, a blanket, a belt, etc. There are different stages of yoga which students should be made aware of. We should not be just obsessionally going for actuality, but we should also have at sight potentiality. What can happen? And also bring to notice all the latencies. Where were you? It is unique kind of journey. They brought the example of aviation and flying. In those journeys, we only have at sight destination and we want to reach the destination. Yoga is not destination. Yoga is in process. Now in today's aviation industry, suppose you are boarded a flight and you are boarded a New York flight. You are not aware, but the flight has been hijacked in cabin and you are going Sydney wards. You have no clue. You have no clue because you see the same cloud all over, cloud covering under your aircraft. You can't make out, are you going northwards or eastwards or westwards or southwards? You are at the mercy of the cockpit, ATC, and in case there is a hijacker, unless it is declared that you are being hijacked, your flight has been hijacked, you have no clue. You don't know whether you are heading New York wards or Sydney wards. So yoga is not a journey of that kind. Very journey itself is what we seek. We don't seek, we are not looking at the destination. Journey gives you yoga and not destination giving you yoga. We are not going for destination. We are just trying to have journey of yoga, and all that yoga happens in journey. So the teacher should make the student aware or make the student realize that like there is a ATC. Without ATC, what will the aircraft, the aviation industry do? Tell me. How much they depend on ATC, air traffic control. So in yoga that you do, there is asana traffic control, not posture traffic control. It is asana. Asana is a seat. Posture, you can stand. Posture, you will stand, you will lie down, supine, prone, you will sit, you will be inverted, you will be in inversion. But the term is asana. Asana literally means seat. What should be finding a seat is the whole mind stuff, the whole existence. That is chitta. All asanas are asanas in the sense seats for chitta. You might stand, but chitta will sit. Suppose you keep me seated for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I will be itching to stand up. And I feel myself seated when I stand up. I am disgusted with sitting and I am vexed and tormented. I've gone numb. Sitting 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I find that I am comfortable when I stand. So standing itself becomes a seat which I am looking for after 4 hours of being on the chair. So therefore, classical yoga should be transmitted in a judicious process, judicious pace, in proper conditions and situations. And it should not be instructional yoga. It should be instruct yoga. We have to draw them in to do yoga and not them give a goal. This is Paschimottanasana, emulate. That is Siddhasana or that is Kraunchasana. Look at it and emulate. Look at it, do it. We have to take them inwards. So, what is practice? Because that was accusation. It is practice, 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 practice. What is practice? What is difference between practice and sadhana? I practice what I don't get, and I try to practice to refine what I have got. Suppose I have refined, What next? I got what I wanted. I have refined what I got it. I have perfected what I got it. What next? So there is a concept called sadhana, which is a broader concept, which will help you get what you should get. You will get what you should be looking for. You will evolve it by your sadhana. And after having got it, you will still do certain sadhana. It is not just to maintain, but to evolve. So sadhana is a broader concept for which there is no word in any other language. Sadhana doesn't come everywhere. Practice comes everywhere. You want to be a carpenter? Practice. You want to be a musician? Practice. You want to be an instrumentalist? Practice. But you don't need sadhana. To be pickpocketer, you need some practice. However, there is no pickpocketing sadhana. Whenever the sadhana is for self-evolvement, self-search, self-evolution, self-understanding, realization, etc., then that is sadhana. Elsewhere, it is not sadhana. I want to be a carpenter, I don't have to do sadhana. I want to be mason, I don't want to do sadhana. I don't need sadhana. I want to be painter, I don't need sadhana. I want to be sculptor, I don't need sadhana. Because I'm not doing all that for my own realization, for self-realization. Sadhana has a spiritual touch. Sadhana is not practice. So certain things have to be clarified. So we have to graduate the students to go to the next rung and introduce them to sadhana, yoga, and not just promise that I will give you yoga. Yoga is not a destiny. It's not a destination. It's a process. So I am not in full support of teachers, what they are doing. I am not in full support of the objection raisers. Yes, we need objection raisers. We need plaintiffs, complainants. And we should not just intellectually try to be defending our positions. We will have to reform ourselves, find out what needs to be done. If the objections are bubbling up, objections are coming, the teachers have to find a way out. They should be seekers. Teachers should be seekers. If the teachers are not seekers, teachers will learn the knack of being cheaters. So teachers should not become cheaters, which is very vulnerable, because we will defend our positions. We will defend what we do. And then we can only take to recourse to cheating. And these are two very close words in English. I don't know why. With little slip of tongue, you will end up saying, rather than teacher, cheater. Rather than cheater, teacher. So the words should not have been so close. Anyway, we are prone, the cheaters, rather the teachers are prone to be cheaters by just logically answering questions. We have to understand the Shastra. We have to understand the tradition. There are two traditions. One is oral tradition, which comes by parampara. Another tradition, which comes by Shastras. So we must be putting our steps on both the realms. So when I am a student of yoga, I go back to 1000 years and 2000 years and 5000 years and 10,000 years as to what was yoga in that time, what was construed as yoga, I am not just going for present time. I try to go to history of yoga, which is timeless history, and I try to understand what was the idea concept yoga, why people went for yoga. 5,000 years ago, unlike we today, we go for fitness, we go to yoga for fitness, we go to yoga for keeping fit, we go to yoga for keeping fit in body and mind. Why do you want to be fit in body and mind? To continue the nonsense of life until our last breath. Why do you want to be fit? So I can do what I want. Whereas one of the the Shanti mantras, Bhadram karane shrunyama devaha, Bhadram pashyem aksharbi yajatraha, Sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvagam stanubihi. That's also what we aspire. Sthiraihi angaihi, the steady and firm anga, body. Sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvagam stanubihi. Tushta, strong, robust, powerful. What? Tanu, body. This is the Shanti mantra which most of the Indians know who are Ganesh Upasakas. Ganesh Atharva Shirsha has this. It is also prayed. Sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvagam stanubihi. Why for? Not to be doing what I am doing. Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. So that I will spend my entire life in servitude of divinity and not in servitude of my desires, my passions, my greeds. We all want to be fit throughout the life to be doing what we like to do, want to do, look for doing. We want to be fit. But 10,000 years back, they were not trying to keep fit. For what we are trying to keep ourselves fit. They were trying to keep fit so that they would be in servitude of the Almighty. They wanted to go by wish of divinity, whereas we want to go by our own wishes, and therefore we want good health, robust health, hassle-free health, physical, mental health, so that we can enjoy the life when we are gratified in our desires. So why are we doing yoga today is a question that we should investigate and probe. Why yoga was taken up by Patanjali's and Yagnavalkyas and Vasishthas and Vishwamitras. You had them yesterday here. Why did they do yoga? Has to be understood, for which we need to go back to that time, that ethos, the culture. Now we don't go back actually because we were existing then. We all were existing during Mahabharata time. Possibly as human beings, if not maybe ant, worm, mosquito, elephant, horse, some form we existed. Possibly in human form we existed in Mahabharata time, 5,000 years ago, Ramayana time, 800,000 years ago. We have been ever existent. There is nothing like retrospective, because we have everything within us from time without beginning, and it will be there until we are liberated. So we are in the frame of actuality, and we are so practical mindedness, with practical mindedness. I say the last statement. We want everyone to be practical minded, practical minded, practical minded. We go for education to be practical minded. Our parents want to be us to be practical minded. But if we are practical minded, we lose the human touch. We no longer remain human beings, characteristically, essentially. What is to be practical minded is to cite our advantage and see that we get our advantages our way. That is practical mindedness. So we are in wrong philosophy for quite some time. We want our children to be practical minded, everyone to be practical minded. That is to be advantage minded. looking for advantages and getting the advantages, then we lose the human touch. So yoga will teach you philosophy of life and conduct. So teachers have that responsibility at right point in time, in right way, in right process. Somehow it is transmitted. It's not just do it yourself. When we do not know who ourselves we are, how can you relegate it to be done yourself? Do you know who you are? For me to say, do yourself, let me, if I put a question, who are you? Are you able to answer? You answer, it will be repudiated, refuted. So that's not the way to go about do it yourself, do it yourself. When we do not know who ourselves are, myself is, yourself are, how can I say do it yourself? What is referred to when we say do it yourself? So yoga is to inquire about you yourself, know thyself. So that classical aspect of yoga should be somewhere tabled. Then this matter cannot go to court. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Raya. Thank you, Abhijata. We are almost near the conclusion, the closing of the program. I request Abhijata to...
No. The most important item is kept at weight. That is the lunch.
That was going to come as announcements later, but for now we have acknowledgements.
They completed.
Okay. All right. It's not complete. It will not be completed without lunch. Don't worry. We have Abhijata acknowledging the team members here.
So as it was announced yesterday, the program actually started January last year. So it's 13 months of activity that has gone on for the celebration of the 50th year. So this would... So this would not be possible if we didn't have the support of all the people that were involved. The stage is not going to be sufficient for them. So, so wherever you are, please stand up as I call out to you. Atul, Kunal, Sai, Sri Krishna, Manu, are you here? Not here? Are they going to come? I don't know. Maybe they are working. Okay, I'll wait for them. So while they walk in, let me...
They should tell their names.
Sorry?
They should reveal identities.
So Kunal sir, you all know Atul is Atul and Sanatam are here. Raya and Kedar, I'll call out. 1 minute, Zui. Raya and Kedar. The support staff, Malari, Vijay, Rajendra, Kulkarni sir, yeah. The volunteers for 13 months. Okay, 13 months. Asmita, Elizabeth, Harish, Zui, please come up as I call out. Jyoti, Manisha, Shwetank, Meghana, Amruta, Padmaja, Sushmita, Shilpi, Satyajit, Vandana, Tanya, Yashita, Rutvij, Bandekar, Umabai, the library volunteers, Rupatai, Subhash, Pooja, Shruti, Fabiola, Tali. Samir Karmarkar is not in town, so he is unable to be here. Samir Kulkarni, Samir Karmarkar have been valuable support for the entire journey. The decorations, Rachana, Sindhu, Sandeep Patel. Is Sandeep Patel here? Sonia, Abhay. Hey, Rutvij, where are you, Baba? Sachin, Shankar, Chanda, Geeta, I don't see them here. Maybe they are downstairs. The team of teachers, like I told you, the stage will not be enough. So if all the teachers, assistants for the entire 13 months, if you can stand where you are. We cannot thank them enough for what they have done. Like the emotion behind it all, not once did even a single person here frown, do this with the eyebrows, oh no, extra hours, oh in the afternoon too, oh Sunday too, oh, and the classes went on. As you heard from the annual report, all the activities that happened, no class in the institute was closed for that. So this is happening in parallel with the number of classes that you heard. I would like to thank the family of the entire team that is present here, because it has been 1 year of sacrifices made by the family members of these people that they could be here to do what they did. So I thank each one of you. Yesterday's performances, Vibha, Vaiju, Vaishnavi, Devki, Rachana, Ayushi, Jyoti, your contribution has been immense. People enjoyed the event yesterday. Thank you. The Mumbai team, Rakhi, Namita, Priya, please pass on our congratulations to the children. I am told they have gone back to Mumbai. So please pass on our congratulations and the gratitude to all the children who performed, their parents who brought them here all the way. Thank you so much. And like I said, their dedication to this institute, to just see that, has been so inspiring. It has been moving for each one of us. And we don't know what we're going to do from tomorrow. And as we usually never give a holiday for the institute, but because 13 months of activity, including Sundays, was going on, this time we've decided to not have the classes on Monday. The online classes will happen. Prashantji, those who are attending 7 a.m., you're anyway going to do it online because Prashantji is in Bellore. So whoever is teaching from outside, from your home, you are going to work tomorrow also. But those of you who are going to come here tomorrow, the institute is closed for practice, for classes, for office inquiries, for library. I hope you will understand, because they need to spend time with their family and friends. Thank you. Thank you so much. And there's no way the help of the Prashantji, it goes without saying, no step would have been taken without his support, without his guidance. Thank you. Sunita is in the sub venue there, so I would like to thank her. She's seeing us online. We want to thank you also. And the students, the student community, 50 years would not have been possible, leave alone the last 13 months. So the 50 years would not have happened if it was not for the students from across the globe. So we thank each one of you individually. Thank you so much for making this happen. Now we have to make way for lunch. The lunch is not here. The lunch is in a plot diagonally across, and Sandeep Patel is not here. I think he's setting up the space there. So he has been gracious enough to lend that plot to us for these 2 days. So I would like to thank him. If we can first make way for the elders to go down for lunch, the kids and those who are leaving, you're going to go for lunch? No, you have to go to set, please. Please wait, otherwise food will not be served. The volunteers have to go there. Usha Pillai, 50 years of the institute. Yes, she has been. I didn't see you, Usha, sorry. Usha is here. She has been a support for the family, for Geeta ji. She is well, she's not well, her family well, family not well, never mattered because she was always here for us. Her husband, Ashok, who's no longer with us, but he used to stay in the institute at night as a part of the institute team. So what this family has done is incredible for us. Volunteers, please go down. So Vijan, children's class is not going to be held next Sunday. It's the Republic Day, it's a holiday. So no children's class next Sunday. The elders, the children, those on medication, you can leave first. People who are flying tonight, today evening, if you're getting late, you can also go down. The others, if you can just please wait. Of course, you can stand up if your knees are hurting. Thank you. And again, finding a space was another thing. I thank you all so much for every function. You sit down in Swastikasan for so long. We looked for other venues, but it was not possible because if we got the stage, we didn't get the permission to serve lunch. If we got the permission to serve lunch, the stage was not available. And when we got both, we didn't get a guarantee that it would not be cancelled in the last minute. So the institute is what we had to do. Thank you. Thank you so much. No. Sorry? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we will have to go there in batches because that venue again cannot serve everybody at a go. So those of you who are okay to have the lunch in the second round, you can hang in here for a while.
Until then, they can visit the stalls.
Okay.
We have a
But
lot
they'll
of
go down
merchandise
later.
for
Let the
sale.
lunch group go down first because it's a bottleneck here. And then the stall is open.
The stalls for t-shirts, calendars, books are all for sale, yes. And the books released yesterday, Yoga Rahasya, Noir Institute, are all available.